Swat Kats, the Radical Squadron, Sunday mornings at 9:05 Eastern on PBS.
Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my review of Season 1 of Swat Kats, the Radical Squadron. Now, Swat Kats is one of those shows that over the years has gotten quite a large cult following. And I can definitely see why. I'm a fan of this show. I've been a fan of Swat Kats ever since I was a kid. I remember really enjoying and watching this show any chance, any opportunity that I had when I was growing up. I remember checking out reruns on Cartoon Network when it was still airing on Cartoon Network. And I remember always making the time to watch it, to give it a shot. I remember watching episodes that I had seen numerous times already, even more times, because I was that into the show. And I remember being bummed and saddened by the fact that it was removed from Cartoon Network and I couldn't watch it anymore. Like, this is back in the time, folks, where you didn't have streaming. And I don't even think it was even released completely on home video yet. So it wasn't until Warner Brothers finally decided to release the show on DVD when I was able to watch it again. So SWAT Kats, the Radical Squadron, is a cartoon series that was created by Christian and Yvonne Tremblay, and it aired from 1993 to 1995. The first run of the series, in terms of it being shown on television, for the most part was relegated to TBS. And I do not have any memories of watching this show on TBS. I remember watching the reruns when I was a preteen on Cartoon Network. So it was one of those things where it was a little too early for me to have actually caught the initial run. And I'm going to focus on Season 1 here because I figured that would be easier for people to digest in terms of a video about this show. And also, I only have revisited Season 1 to date, so that's the other reason for that. Now, pretty much every episode of the show is directed by Robert Alvarez. And the majority of the series is also written by two guys, Glenn Leopold and Lance Falk. Jim Stenstrom, he wrote a couple episodes, and then he had a bunch of other people who contributed to an episode, like David Ehrman, Vaughn Williams, Eric Clark, Mark Saraceni, and Jim Katz. But mainly, the bulk of the episodes were written by two guys. The animation for Season 1 was done by Hano Hyung Up, which was an animation studio based in South Korea. This is an animation studio that had worked on The Real Ghostbusters, Team NT, and others. And that's the reason why the animation here has some differing quality. I gotta be honest, the animation in Season 2 is better, but the animation does not make up for the fact that the writing isn't as strong in Season 2. Season 1 has some really great writing for a show like this that to me makes up for the inconsistent animation quality. Because there are some episodes that have some really great looking animation, and then there are other ones that are really middling and make the show look a little cheap. And apparently Christian Tremblay, he wasn't happy with the animation quality of Season 1 either. He was very disappointed by the inconsistencies. I would be completely foolish if I did not mention this show's excellent, spectacular score by Randall Chrisman, Nick Brown, and John Zucker. Randall Chrisman was responsible for the majority of the music, and this show has a really kick-ass score, a lot of really hard rocking themes that make a lot of the sequences even more exciting and fun to watch. And the intro for the series is every bit as iconic in terms of its presentation, and also the music as any other well-known, well-regarded cartoon. Just a really awesome intro that just gets your blood pumping and just makes you really excited to watch the show. It gets you geared up and ready to sink your claws into the series. So, before I get into talking about each episode, I want to give you like a little bit of an overview of what this show is about. So, SWAT Kats, for those of you who do not know, is a series that focuses on these two fighter pilots, T-Bone and Razor, who at one point used to work for what is the equivalent of a police force in this alternate reality where alien cats are the main source of civilization. So, in this alternate reality, you have these alien cats, these humanoid cats, who are the equivalent of humans, and they reside in various different places, but the majority of the show is focused on this city called Mega Cat. I believe it's called Mega Cat City. So they are focused primarily on saving and preventing the city from being destroyed or annihilated by different villains and different nefarious forces. And they are able to do this because they have a fighter jet called the Turbo Cat that they use at their disposal. And this Turbo Cat can go super fast. It can even go into space. It has all these different gadgets and all these different things that it can do. It has a variety of different kinds of missiles. That is really where the show really shines in terms of its creativity, is all the different kinds of missiles and the different kinds of gadgets and weapons that the SWAT cats use. I mean, you got missiles that scramble electrical equipment. You got missiles that can split off into different directions. You got ones that can cut things into pieces, because once the missile gets released, then an attachment pops open and it's like a bunch of blades that can chop through things. I was really entertained by all the different kinds of variations of missiles and weaponry that the SWAT cats had at their disposal. I mean, you had even things like there's a motorcycle that pops out of the bottom of the Turbo Cat. Uh, their ejector seats, they could fly and could fire missiles and lasers. They would also have the ability, when they would be out on their own outside the Turbo Cat, they would have these arm gauntlets that would enable them to fire projectiles and use grappling hooks and so on. The design of the Turbo Cat was awesome. Just a really awesome, cool, badass looking plane. And the outfits that they wore definitely were very striking and visually uh, quite radical. Um, and I keep using that word because it fits. Like, this is a radical show with some radical characters and some radical action. And there are supporting cast members. You have Kelly Briggs, who's the deputy mayor, who, in a lot of ways, is the heroine of the show. You could argue that she's kind of the April O'Neil for the SWAT Cats. You have Mayor Manx, who's this mayor who's a fool, who is the show's comic relief, and to me personally is easily one of the weakest characters. You've got Commander Farrell, who's this police officer who is the head of this group called the Enforcers, who is a constant thorn in the SWAT Cat side. Think J. Jonah Jameson if he was a cop. That's really what Commander Farrell is. He's even saying things like, I hope they get arrested and they're a menace, that kind of stuff. So he's really the J. Jonah Jameson of the series. And then you have various different kinds of villains. You got Dr. Viper, you've got Dark Cat, you've got the Metallic Cats, Past Master, Hard Drive, Rex Shard, Mad Cat, among others. So there's a variety of villains. The show really focuses on, I think, like maybe 3 or 4 for the most part. Like there are some new villains that are thrown in there, but in the first season, mostly you have stories that involve Dr. Viper, the Metallic Cats, Dark Cat, or Past Master. The voice cast for this series is amazing. I mean, terrific voice cast. I mean, you've got so many really talented voice actors that were a part of this show. I mean, you've got Barry Gordon, who voices Razor. That name might sound familiar to you because Barry Gordon, he voiced Donatello in the 80s Ninja Turtles cartoon. And T-Bone is voiced by Charlie Adler, who was the voice of Buster Bunny in Tiny Toon Adventures. Speaking of Tiny Toon Adventures, Tress MacNeille, who was the voice of Babs Bunny, she voices Callie in this series. Gary Owens, the voice of Commander Toast. I got him confused. Commander Toastman. Commander Farrell. He's the voice of Powdered Toast Man in the Ren and Stimpy cartoon. You also have Jim Cummings, who voices Mayor Manx. You've got Frank Welker, who does the voice of Dr. Viper. Mark Hamill voices a character named Burke. Dark Cat is voiced by Brock Peters. You've got Rob Paulson. He voices the villain Hard Drive. You have Kaf Susi. She voices the character Turmoil. Michael Dorn voices a character named Mutilor. Those are both characters that were from season 2. You've got film actors in Roddy McDowall, who voices Lenny Ringtail, the villain in the episode that features Mad Cat. You've got James Hong, who voices Katzmer, who is also another character in that episode. You've got Robert Patrick, who voices Dr. Leader Greenbox in an episode. You've also got John Vernon, who voices Rex Shard, one of the villains in one of the episodes from season 1. So overall, just a really terrific voice cast, and they all work together well, and they all do a great job with what they're asked to do. I mean, I'm not a fan of Mayor Manx. I think the character is one note. I think the character is pretty much useless, and the accent gets really annoying really quickly, but Jim Cummings did well with what he was asked to do. Like, he was asked to do that, and he performed that job admirably. But really, where this show shines with the voice acting is the SWAT Kats, Barry Gordon and Charlie Adler. They are really quite a dynamic duo, and the villains are pretty good too. I really like Brock Peters' take on Dark Cat and Frank Welker's approach with Dr. Viper. So the first episode of the series, now we get into my thoughts on individual episodes. So the first episode of the series is called The Past Master Always Rings Twice. And this one was actually intended to not be the first episode. the producers and the creators, they wanted to release the giant bacteria as episode 1. But I think TBS and Ted Turner and Hanna-Barbera, they decided to go with the past master always rings twice because of the fact that it's got a giant dinosaur in it, and dinosaurs were really the next big thing because Jurassic Park had come out and it was a massive hit. And I understand that, marketing and so on, but this is not one of the strongest or one of the best episodes of season 1. So I honestly feel that it might have been a better idea to just have gone with what the creators wanted and released the giant bacteria as episode 1. But for a start to a series, it's not that bad. I'm just not a big fan of the past master. I think he's kind of a lame villain. He's just this Middle Ages medieval sorcerer who has the ability to travel through time, and he uses that power to enter the present day of the show. And actually what happens is he gets awoken by grave robbers. He was imprisoned in some kind of medieval coffin with a spell, and these grave robbers break him out and awaken him from his 800-year slumber. And now that he's free, he decides to use this Tome of Time, which is this book of spells, to take Mega Cat City back to the Dark Ages. And he brings a dinosaur in to even the odds to help him fight the SWAT Kats, and he brings some other things from the past to help him. And it's one of those episodes where it's all right. The action is meh. It's not really one of the more memorable episodes. And like I said, it's a decent start to the series. I didn't hate it by any means, but it's not one that I will go back to that much because Past Master is a very one-note villain to me. He's a medieval sorcerer. He wants to bring back the past, and you're like, okay, all right, whatever. The next episode, though, is where the series really starts to take a serious climb in terms of quality. The giant bacteria. I love this episode. I think it's a great episode. I don't understand why it gets such a low rating from some of the fans. Like, I'm looking at one of the SWAT Kats websites, and they give it a D plus. I don't think it's that bad of an episode. I think it's better than the Past Master always rings twice. Both episodes, by the way, were written by Glenn Leopold. So Dr. Viper is the villain who's introduced here. He intends to steal Catalyst 99 from Mega Cat Biochemical Labs, and he uses this monster to do it. And it's up to the SWAT Kats to try to stop this giant bacteria's reign of terror. And the bacteria was created in a way that I thought was pretty scary and twisted for a kid's show. There's a lot of body horror elements here because the giant bacteria used to be this convict who then was tricked by Dr. Viper, and he was turned into this guinea pig, and then he was mutated into this monstrous half man, half bacteria monster. And I really like how the show showcases the bacteria and how it's able to split into different forms and multiply itself. And I like how the SWAT Kats use their smarts and their brains to find a way to stop it. And I like Dr. Viper, and overall I think it's one of the better episodes of season 1. I don't think it's as bad as some people make it out to be. Really good pace too. Overall, just a really fun episode. Episode 3, though, The Wrath of Dark Cat, is arguably my favorite episode of season 1. This one's written by Jim Stenstrom, and this one features the debut of the SWAT Kat's arch nemesis, Dark Cat. And he wants to end the SWAT Kats for good. And he's gonna do that by threatening to destroy Mega Cat City with a bomb. And while the main plot with Dark Cat is a little generic, what makes this episode so great is the fact that it provides a lot of really compelling backstory for the characters. This is where you get a lot of the origin for the SWAT Kats, why they became who they are. You find out that they used to work for Commander Farrell as enforcers, but they had this reputation of being a little bit too rowdy and too rebellious, and they took too many risks, and they were on the hunt for Dark Cat, and in the process, that they stopped him, but they blew up uh, the headquarters for the enforcers, and that led to them losing their jobs, and that led to them working at a salvage yard to try to pay for the damage. And that bit of fate is what also led them to being able to build the Turbo Cat from the salvage, from the scrap that they would receive at their job. And they built the Turbo Cat and all of the other gadgets and everything else. And that's where they decided to become these vigilantes, the SWAT Kats. And so there's a lot of backstory. And Dark Cat has this really great emphasis in terms of his relationship to T-Bone and Razor and to Commander Farrell. So it makes for a lot of great drama. And then on top of that, you got some really good action, some sharp animation, and then it goes to an even grander scale because they wind up going into outer space. The Turbo Cat can not only fly at supersonic speeds, it can also survive space, and it can fly through space, and it's just an epic episode. Like, it's a really great episode. The next episode is Destructive Nature. Another one of my favorites. This one was written by Lance Falk. And in this one, Dr. Viper returns, and this time he's got company. He's got backup. He's got more than just a giant bacteria. This time he's got an army of plant monsters. And the plant monsters are very creative in terms of their designs. You've got flying Venus flytrap kind of monsters. You've got giant Venus flytraps. You've got all these different kinds of monsters, and the designs are honestly really creepy. And it's a very fast-paced, thrilling episode with a lot of action and a lot of really fun animation. And it's a blast. I really like that one. Episode 5 is the Metallicats. This one was written by Jim Stenstrom. I'm not a fan of the Metallicats. I know a lot of people like the Metallicats. I'm not a big fan of these characters. I find them to be really annoying. I mean, not as annoying as the cat puns and the numerous times where characters try to make cats alive a thing. Oh my god. I would be totally fine if I never had to hear that term ever again. Cats alive! It got so old real quick. But the reason why the Metallicats are annoying to me and irritating is because they are always bickering at one another, and they have this like New York Brooklyn accent, and the voice actors they did a good job, but I find these characters insufferable. And as villains, they're not very complex, they're not very interesting, they're not very intimidating, they're kind of dolts. And the action here was also I would say this is probably a tie with the Past Master episodes when it comes to some of my least favorite of this season. They were gangsters named Mac and Molly Mange. They died, but then they were brought back to life by this scientist who didn't know better. And then they decided to seek revenge against Mayor Manx and all these other people that denied them parole, and eventually they have to get stopped by the SWAT Kats, and it's just a pretty forgettable one-note episode. Bride of the Past Masters, episode 6. It's also written by Glenn Leopold. And in this one, the SWAT Kats actually get taken back in time to the medieval ages, where they had a bit of a bout with time travel in the first episode where they wound up in prehistoric ages. Here they wind up in the medieval age, and they decide to help a trying to think of the right word. Relative probably isn't, distant relative of Callie and Queen Callista, and they decide to help her fend off the advances and the forces of the Past Master. And I'm not a fan of the Past Master. I don't really care for his shtick. This one is a little bit better though than the first episode, because the SWAT Kats are out of their own time here, and they have to use their wits and creativity to try to fix their plane and use medieval weaponry and medieval warfare to their advantage. But it's just one of those episodes that I can take or leave, to be honest. I believe this is episode 7, I think, because you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, episode 7 is Night of the Dark Cat. Pretty much any episode featuring Dark Cat so far is a good one. This one was written by David Ehrman, and this one features Dark Cat and a new villain, Hard Drive, which I really liked. I like the design of Hard Drive. I like the fact that he's some hacker who has a suit that he can use to actually go into computers and go into electrical equipment and become electricity. So Dark Cat employs Hard Drive to help him get revenge on the SWAT Kats, and the way that they do it is pretty clever and definitely devious. He does it in a way where Hard Drive takes over the Turbo Cat and flies it around, and this is while Dark Cat is able to capture the SWAT Kats, so they're indisposed, and so he has the Turbo Cat flying around with Hard Drive controlling it and using a voice synthesizer to synthesize the voices of T-Bone and Razor to make it seem like they are the ones blowing up buildings in town and robbing banks and so on. So he's destroying their reputation, and he's also trying to destroy them. But of course, the SWAT Kats find a way to prevail, and all is good. But for the most part, good setup. It was once again nice to see the SWAT Kats use their will and their wits and their strength to figure things out, despite not having the Turbo Cat. So yeah, that was a solid episode. The next one, episode 8, is Chaos and Crystal. This one features Rex Shard, voiced by John Vernon. This was written by Lance Falk. I like this one. Another one that had a lot of creativity, fun new villain, Rex Shard, where he turns into this half man, half diamond cat that can turn things into diamonds and can grow to enormous size, and the SWAT Kats have to use their brains to figure out a way to stop him, and there's a lot of fun set pieces in this episode. The next episode 9, is The Ghost Pilot, and this one is written by Vaughn Williams. This features the Red Lynx, who is this Mega War 2 pilot who was the most evil pilot in history. Definitely a take on the Red Baron, who comes back from the dead to get revenge against the living ancestor of the pilot who shot him down, which is Mayor Manx. This had a lot of really exciting, fun dogfights and action. I like the design of the red lynx, very fearsome, very spooky looking, and overall, another episode that I definitely enjoyed. Um, it was also nice to see Mayor Manx actually do something, because in a lot of the other episodes, he just runs away and he's just ineffective comic relief. Episode 11 is Metal Urgency. This one was written by Eric Clark and Lance Falk. This is another one that features the Metallic Cats. But this is a better episode though than the first episode that featured the two, because this one at least has giant robot carnage, and anything with giant robot carnage is a plus for me. So that episode was fun. I wouldn't say it's one of my favorites, but it's one that I wouldn't mind watching again just for the giant robot carnage. Because the Metallicats, they're brought back, and they also discover the secret identity of T-Bone and Razor, and then they acquire these giant robot bodies, and it's up to the SWAT Kats to try to stop their metallic destruction of the city. Then I think I'm actually a little bit ahead. I think Ghost Pilot was actually episode yeah, I don't think. Yeah, Ghost Pilot was actually episode 9. So yeah, I'm a little ahead. Chaos and Crystal was episode 8. Night of the Dark Cat was 7. Ghost Pilot was 9. Metal Urgency was episode 10. My bad. My apologies. Sorry about that. Um, Episode 11 is the Cicata. This one was. This one features Dr. Harley Street, who's a NASA scientist. Get it? NASA instead of NASA. He brings back this alien cicada, which is a cat mixed with a cicada. And it bites him, and then it turns him and others into slaves. And then they also begin to mutate into cicadas. And it's essentially the insect episode where the SWAT Kats have to fight the bugs. And this one, it had some decent action bits. There's some fun stuff where T-Bone and Razor go to a movie and see a horror film called Hardshell. Some interesting bits of character where you find out that T-Bone is initially afraid of bugs, but the Cicata is a lame villain because there's really not much you can do with it. It doesn't speak, it doesn't talk, so all these other people speak for it, and it's a very limited episode in terms of storytelling and what they're able to do. Episode 12 though, much better. Enter the Mad Cat. This one was written by Glenn Leopold. Cicata was also written by Glenn Leopold. And this one features Roddy McDowall, who voices Mad Cat, the villain, Lenny Ringtail. He's a comedian who was sent to an institution because he went crazy. He escapes and then breaks into this shop that is owned by this character who's voiced by James Hong. And he steals this Jack-in-the-Box. And it has this medieval court jester, Mad Cat, who apparently his spirit was trapped in this Jack-in-the-Box, so they decide to bond with one another and get revenge against the modern jester, king and queen and knight. And there's some fun stuff here, some nice creativity in terms of how the Mad Cat uses his powers, like he'll turn into a giant ball, or he'll use his powers to be able to disappear and reappear and shrink down to a small size and then grow into a large giant proportion. And then some fun, you could tell that Roddy McDowall was having a blast playing this character. And the way that he traps people in the box was also a little unique. And overall, I really enjoyed Enter the Mad Cat. That was a fun episode. Then you have Catastrophe, which is the 13th episode and the last episode of season 1. I got a question about this one. I'm wondering if the animation style changed with this episode. and you went to a different animator, because the animation is a little bit different here, and it's a little higher quality. And this is one epic, badass, awesome way to end the first season. Like, this is how you put together a season finale. So you have Dark Cat, Dr. Viper, and the Metallic Cats. They join together to form their Alliance of Evil, their own their own version of the Sinister Six, without really having six members, to destroy the SWAT Cats. And there's a lot of stakes here, and a lot of twists and turns. The Turbo Cat actually gets destroyed, and the SWAT Cats willingly sacrifice it in order to stop this Alliance of Evil. And they use a turbo sub, a submarine, which was cool to see. And it was just a lot of fun to see all of these villains in one place, and the SWAT Cats teaming up with Commander Farrell. Commander Farrell decides to help them out, and really becomes an integral part of why they were able to stop this Alliance of Evil. And just a really entertaining and exciting way to end the first season. So, like I said earlier, every episode is directed by Robert Alvarez, and for the most part, I really do feel he does a great job directing this show. Definitely injects a lot of energy into the animation. When the action sequences are on the screen, they're very thrilling, and definitely get your adrenaline pumping for a cartoon, especially with all the engines of the jet just blaring loudly and screaming across the screen, and just all the different angles and the different things that the Turbo Cat is capable of. And overall, it's just a really uh, enjoyable gem of a show. I would say if you're a fan of like Ninja Turtles, this is something that is definitely going to be right up your alley, and I would highly recommend it if you haven't seen it already. But anyway, I got nothing else to say about season 1 of SWAT Kats, the Radical Squadron, except thanks for watching my review, and as always, I'll see you later. See ya.